Thanks for joining us today for a webinar, Foot Traffic Attribution, Navigating the Customer Journey Through Measurement. My name is Lara Lima, and I'm part of the growth marketing team here at StackAdapt. And with that, I would like to hand it over to the presenters to get us started.
Yeah, thank you. Hey everyone, just tuning in here. My name is Jasmine Panasar from StackAdapt. I'm a manager within our solutions consulting organization. I'm super excited to be presenting here today. And I'm joined by Mark Bilecki from PlaceIQ, who's a senior account executive, who I've been working with pretty closely for the last 2 to 3 years to make sure that our two platforms are working very closely together to make sure that their location data is being operated and used like the most effective way possible in StackAdapt as well. So yeah, just going a little bit ahead into the next slide. Just wanted to talk about, again, like for those who don't know, what StackAdapt and PlaceIQ do. So StackAdapt is a multi-channel programmatic advertising platform used by the most exceptional digital marketers. Our platform is where some of the most progressive work in machine learning meets cutting-edge user experience. Ad buyers plan, execute, and manage data-driven digital advertising campaigns across all devices, inventory, and publisher partners. And then I'll hand it off to Mark to talk a little bit more about what PlaceIQ does.
Thanks everybody for joining today. Jasmine, appreciate the introduction. PlaceIQ is a location data provider. We have partnered with the fine folks at StackAdapt to provide them visitation data and audience segments that allow you, the marketer, to better understand offline behaviors and take those insights online to allow you to decision off of them for more effective marketing outcomes. Included in which is your visitation audiences, the ability to measure visitation to a set of locations, or the opportunity to receive a full visitation data set on a daily basis, which is what StackAdapt does with us currently.
Sweet, thank you for that. Now just kind of going into the agenda. So today we're gonna be covering a few topics. We're gonna start off with an introduction to location targeting. Then we're gonna follow up with specific location targeting strategies. Third, we're going to go into like certain emerging channels that we're seeing work very well with location data, and then finally cutting it off with measuring foot traffic and how we can do that and key metrics to kind of keep an eye on. And then the finals will just be like a wrap up and the final Q&A. So just going ahead of this, starting to the first topic with an introduction to location targeting. We're going to start off with sort of the broad basics of what we think of when we think about location targeting. So in a nutshell, location targeting allows advertisers to tailor their specific campaigns to specific regions, cities, or even a radius around a physical location, or exclude specific locations from targeting. And you can imagine this is going to be hyper relevant for programmatic advertising or advertising in general across a wide array of verticals. Within StackAdapt, when we think about location targeting, we think about 3 main types. First being geographic targeting. Think of us wanting to target the entire state of California or target specific zip codes or cities. Then we have geo-radius targeting, which is actually targeting people within a radius. Think of like you have a shop or a bakery and you want to target people while they're actually nearby. You leverage this solution to just make sure that you're actually reaching people within a lot longer of that radius that's nearby your building. And the final one being geo-radius targeting, which is actually capturing users within a specific radius that's pre-specified and then reaching them at a later date across all of their devices. Now, I would say that this is like a little bit bare bones in terms of location targeting strategies, and which is kind of like a good segue of why we partner with location data companies like PlaceIQ, who are actually able to use their base map and their technologies to make sure that not only are you getting this type of location data, but you're actually able to segregate that and derive intent from it as well. So just off that note, I'm going to hand it off to Mark to kind of talk a little bit more about how PlaceIQ leverages location data for targeting.
Thank you so much. So as a background, PlaceIQ has been in business providing location data for the last 13 years. We ingest movement data from compliant publishers, apps, SDKs, and then process it against the most up-to-date point of interest data in the market. Essentially, we acquire a mobile ad signal with a mobile ad ID, timestamp, and latitude, longitude associated with it. We take that and process it through our base map, which is our own internal database of map locations. And we can tell that when mobile ad ID 123 is in a latitude longitude that in our database describes it to be a Starbucks in downtown New York City, we probabilistically determine that a visit took place. It's not really enough to just have great movement data. That data can be worthless if we don't really understand what the world looks like around it. PlaceIQ was acquired about 2 years ago by a company called Precisely. And since that acquisition, we have upgraded our own systems and databases to integrate their world-class geospatial assets. That includes demographic profiles, neighborhood features, and high precision point of interest data. And that has assisted and improved how we process movement data to produce the most accurate understanding of real world behaviors. So digital marketing as a whole has always been focused forever on the consumer journey from website to website or click to click to help understand intent. PlaceIQ allows you, the marketer, to contextualize offline behaviors and bring those insights online. These insights can be valuable, but really more so now than ever before because of the looming deprecation of the cookie. By understanding that someone's visited a car dealership or a sporting goods store, a rec center, or an auto repair shop, marketers can accurately deduce what types of interests this consumer might have, and then use those to effectively deliver a message with the proper context. So at scale, PlaceIQ sees about 150 million monthly active users. We use that data to help populate our various audience segments. Currently, there's about 1,800 or so syndicated segments available for use today through StackAdapt, and they span pretty much most every industry vertical, category, and brand. Most commonly, they're used for auto, dining, retail, and entertainment, but far beyond that as well. PlaceIQ has even taken a step further beyond just a visit-based segment by providing purchase-based segments now as well. These in particular cover 175 brands and allow you to target purchasers, both online and offline purchases, within the last 90 days. So a much more effective way to speak to an audience lower in the marketing funnel. And we'll get into that a little bit more as we go forward. So second section here, location targeting strategies. Let's talk a little bit about that. It's important to consider the strategy of how to use the contextualized information to your advantage. When we provide these audiences for targeting use, it's not just simply about talking to somebody who may have visited a McDonald's in the last 30 days. It's about what their movement, what their day-to-day activity actually tells you about them and what their interests might be. So we wanted to highlight a couple of the most commonly used and effective use cases. One of the most popular is always conquesting, so reaching out and engaging audiences that have visited competitors' locations. You can look at lapsed customers, so understanding that somebody has not interacted or engaged or visited your particular locations over a prolonged period of time would give you an opportunity to try and re-engage them. You can also flip that upside down completely. Maybe you want to only speak to your highest value customers, the people that are in your locations most often, most frequent, or most recently. All good strategies to understand their movements. We provide opportunities to expand your reach with these segments as well through smart market audiences, where we consider not only visitation, but whether somebody lives by, drives by, or works by a particular location. And as you might imagine, right, if you're interacting or seeing a particular location or brand every day, whether you're working, commuting, or just living, you're going to be more likely to engage with it and more likely to go visit that location. So those are also very popular. We spoke about purchase-based audiences as well, but we have two different varieties there. Purchasers in the last 90 days or top spenders. So the top 50% of spenders at those locations, you can also target those folks specifically. Lifestyle. So this is really more of a generalized category. One particular example that always brings to light the use of offline behaviors. We worked with an auto manufacturer who was looking to run a campaign and segment out the audience targeting based upon the vehicles in their line of vehicles. So knowing that somebody went to a baby store or a pet store, that might tell you something about what they're interested in. What if they visited a ski resort or a beach or a national park? Also very important in understanding what type of vehicle they might be interested in. In utilizing these types of strategies, the auto manufacturer was able to really effectively message the proper audiences about the particular vehicles they were trying to sell, rather than sending one blank message to everybody across the board. very, very effective usage of offline context. And then, of course, always important this time of year, PlaceIQ has a 24-month look-back window in all of our location-based data, which allows us to provide year-over-year audiences. So if you want to target somebody who was in a particular location this time last year, maybe on Black Friday, or maybe on Valentine's Day, or Memorial Day weekend, or pick a holiday or an event, we can provide you with an audience that visited locations on that particular day or that particular set of days last year. Never more important than the holidays right now. So those are particularly popular at the moment.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mark. Leading up to like what Mark was discussing about like location targeting strategies, we thought it'd be a good idea to kind of walk over kind of 3 common tactics that we see on the StackAdapt platform across many different industries and many different verticals perform very well. And the first one being targeting areas of interest. So think of essentially using location data amongst certain areas or locations to actually drive high intent audiences that have displayed interest towards the specific brand or the consumer product that you're actually selling. This is good for B2C general interest areas such as shopping malls or event venues. Think of somebody who has a shop within a mall who actually wants to target people actively in that mall at that point in time, because if they're already in that mall, that means they're already very likely to actually drive footfall visitation towards that specific store and actually drive a purchase as well. Think about actually using this for B2B. In situations where we want to target specific companies, we can actually put in their lat longs of their offices and use that for geo-targeting as well in real time to actually just reach B2B professionals as well. And then again, another kind of B2B example is conferences and trade shows. Let's say I am Amazon and I want to promote my AWS software. I could actually target a cloud infrastructure conference that's happening for a week and gather everybody that has actually went to that specific conference and use that for a very high intent audience tactic. The next tactic that we actually want to discuss is competitive conquesting. I know Mark already discussed this to some degree as well, but this is probably like one of the most common cases in terms of targeting, especially for retail QSR and restaurants. And essentially what this entails is actually capturing prospects or users that are frequently going to your competitor stores. So think of a major coffee chain. For this example, let's say Tim Hortons in Canada. What they could do is they could actually outright reach individuals or create a very high intent audience of people that frequently go to Starbucks and reach out to them with specific messaging that portrays why Tim Hortons is better, or promote certain discounts or certain features that are only exclusive to their specific coffee shop. And they could use this to actually drive footfall and drive an uplift in traffic and in-store purchases directly from their competitors in the same space, and make sure that their brand is always top of mind when people are thinking about specific coffee shops. And then again, on like the B2B perspective, you can also advertise to prospects attending a competitor's event or a competitor's conquest, or actually target competitor B2B offices. Now, although this is very high intent and high performing, I would say that a key thing to keep in mind is that you would be targeting competitors themselves, which would lead to some sort of wastage. However, again, like the majority of your audiences would be reaching the right individuals and are very effective for driving conversions. Just moving on to the final tactic, and I think this is like a key kind of example of how StackAdapt and PlaceIQ works together to bridge offline and online data. And this is actually leveraging in location-based audiences from PlaceIQ and intersecting them with StackAdapt's in-house browsing audiences. So not only does this give you an audience of people that are actually visiting a specific location or set of locations very frequently, you can also layer intent online to actually get something that's like very, very likely to convert in the store. So the example here we have is targeting everybody who's reading about the latest shoe trends and who has been within a certain radius from your store in the last 7 days. So this actually enables us to make sure that we're reaching people that are actually interested in purchasing shoes within the last like 30 days. And then also we're making sure that we're using geo-radius targeting or location-based targeting to make sure that we're not actually wasting spend on people that aren't going to actually go to the store and they're actually like residing nearby that specific store that we're trying to drive the traffic to. In terms of strategies as well, key thing to keep into account is also how to optimize for your location targeting campaigns. And there's essentially like 4 main points that we want to touch on. The first one being bid optimization, to make sure that you're actively looking at each location's or like location sets campaigns to make sure that you're not looking at an aggregate level, but actually digging deeper and seeing which geographies are performing better and understanding why. If a specific geography is not performing as you would expect, is it due to low CPMs? Is it due to not enough impressions being served? Things to just consider when actively thinking about your campaigns year over year. The next topic that we want to talk about is actually location and keyword exclusions, making sure that if you are noticing year over year that a specific location set that you are targeting within your campaigns is actually not performing well, maybe it's just worthwhile to exclude that going forward. Excluding locations that you know just won't convert for your product, and also making sure that you have proper keyword online exclusions to making sure that you're not actively serving pages or serving certain inventory channels that you know aren't going to perform according to the historical reports that you received. And the final one being just radius testing. So with location audiences, if you guys are familiar, there's oftentimes like a limit between scale and preciseness that you have to manage. So understanding the key goals of your campaign and whether or not, if scale is a bigger issue, if we should expand our radius or expand our targeting tactics, versus if we are trying to have a very high intent hyper targeted audience, making sure that the radius is low enough to actually ensure that we are in fact reaching the correct individuals throughout the campaigns as well. And I guess like the final thing for specific targeting strategies and just overall targeting strategies in general is creative best practices for location targeting. Oftentimes what we'll see is we'll see specific creatives that are used across different geographies, but this isn't necessarily the best tactic. And if you want to drive results, we often recommend location specific ad copies to make sure that specific aspects of that geography are actually tailored within the creative itself. We can also use location data to drive personalized ads, meaning location data can help reveal recent changes in your customers' behavior and use these insights to reach relevant audiences with a message that delivers on your campaign goals. And then also encourage a direct action to get direct results. If you are having a campaign that's looking to drive offline results, it's important to actually have a direct call to action for users to actually go to that specific offline store instead of just leveraging different online tactics, or like a call to action that drives to like a website instead of the in-store as well. So just kind of going over an example, you'll see here we have a dynamic creative that's created by our creative studio team. And what this creative is it's driving individuals to a store, and it actually dynamically, based on the lat long that's available in the bid stream of the impression, it will showcase the 3 nearest stores and directly link it to Google Maps. We've seen this unit perform very well, especially when driving foot traffic and driving results for QSR, retail, and automotive, just because it has a very direct call to action. It's dynamic and it shows like the nearest in-store that you can actually purchase the specific product in. And its ad specs are actually very applicable to desktop and mobile as well. So again, the key unit to think about when running football studies or using any sort of location-based targeting within your campaigns. So the next topic that we want to explore is actually channels and emerging channels specific to location data. And we're going to be talking about 2 in particular. The first one being CTV and the other one being DOH, which I'm sure you guys have heard a lot about in the recent years. Just to start off, why should we even use connected TV? There's 3 main reasons on StackAdapt side that we often showcase to our clients when talking about CTV. Number 1 being extended audience reach and engagement. It allows us to have a full screen TV experience while actually serving that same impression to multiple viewers within that same household. Second one being premium inventory. It allows you to run ads along popular TV shows and movies in front of a fully invested audience during prime time hours. And there's many premium inventory channels as well and sources as well, including Disney and the StackAdapt platform. And the final one being is high completion rates. CTV has again and again proved that its natural large screen experience results in very high ad viewability, and people are more likely to view a full CTV ad compared to an online video ad. Now, in terms of targeting and measurement opportunities within CTV, what you can do is within StackAdapt, again, use browsing audiences to create highly customizable targeting tactics, allowing you to target TV screens based on what those users have actually read online. And then using our device and cookie linkages to the IP, we're able to extrapolate that and actually achieve these audiences and reach them at a high scale. Then we have layered targeting, making sure that you are in tandem using geographic audiences in tandem with CTV to make sure that you're only reaching geographies that you are interested in, or different like IPs or households that are actively going to stores or have the visitation patterns that you've historically wanted. And then finally tying that back to football attribution. So just because football attribution is tied to the device ID doesn't mean that we can't attribute conversions and offline conversions to CTV. Using StackAdapt's cross-device expansion graph, we're able to actually effectively measure if each CTV ads actually drove specific foot traffic to a location by leveraging our location bid stream by PlaceIQ. So just kind of going over an example of like what an automotive dealership might do. They can start off by serving a CTV ad in order to get like a high amount of reach and a high amount of viewability across for their awareness tactics. So you can run CTV ads with high viewability and completion rates. And then the second portion is you can actually pixel those specific creatives and retarget them on desktop and mobile to get even more scale and make sure that your brand name is constantly top of mind. And then finally, you can tie that back with a footfall study within the StackAdapt platform. So not only tracking the desktop and mobile ads, but tracking CTV to see kind of over the life cycle of that specific customer, if over time they've actually, their perception of your brand did change, or they did in fact end up going to your automobile dealership after seeing those ads across these various channels. So again, this is like something we would definitely recommend. And I know when we're thinking about footfall studies, we often think about display and native as being like the primary indicators of performance, but it's important to note that actually reaching users again and again over the specific like desktops and devices over time, and actually using CTV to get that high viewability and that high awareness tends to actually lead towards that consideration conversion journey as well. Now, the next and final channel that we want to talk about, and this is becoming very big, especially now in this past year, is digital out of home. Essentially, what digital out of home is, it's an advertising channel that can be found outside of the home in a public environment. And here we've listed a few key examples. We have large formats, think of billboards in Times Square, urban panels, street furniture. There's also place-based, where you can actually place ads on gas stations, within restaurants, gyms, bars, malls, and universities. And then we actually have point of purchase DOH placements as well, actual within big box retailers, casual dining, QSRs, pharmacies, and grocery stores as well. Now, the reason why these are so beneficial for driving foot traffic is because people are already out and about, and these are highly viewable ads when you're actually walking around. If you think about it from a consumer's standpoint, you're most often not when you're walking around in a large city, you're not going to be tied to your phone the entire time. So having these ad placements nearby your specific location that you're trying to drive foot traffic to tends to have an overall lift in previous tests that we have run. So in terms of targeting and measurement opportunities with location data with DOH, there's probably three main things that we want to discuss. Number one is geographic targeting. So DOH is very different compared to other channels just because there's no key identifier or audience segment that you can use to reach DOH. However, you could use location trends and location intelligence to help navigate which DOH billboards you actually want to reach. We can leverage partners like PlaceIQ to actually figure out which zip codes or which cities are actually indexing very highly for visits towards a specific type of location. And then based on that indexing, we can actually select specific cities in the US or specific zip codes or states that we actually want to drive DOH advertising towards. We can also use georadius targeting to actually target DOH billboards that are nearby your physical store. That way, if people see that billboard, they're more inclined to actually visit your store. And we can also use contextual targeting, meaning if we're a store in a mall, we can actually target DOH billboards within that mall itself, making sure that while people are actually going around the mall, that your brand or your store is top of mind. People know that your store is within that specific mall and that they should be visiting. What goes into the kind of like the consideration phase is actually using location data partners to retarget as well. So location data companies are actually able to place radiuses around different DOH billboards and capture the devices that have likely to be exposed to that DOH ad. And this can be very beneficial in terms of capturing users that have already seen your DOH ad and then using that audience to retarget across other channels, including CTV, desktop, mobile, etc. And then finally, tying that all together is footfall attribution again. So capturing those devices and kind of understanding whether or not like DOH and other channels are actively driving on that specific audience in specific context to actual foot traffic visits to your brick and mortar stores. And again, it's always important to conduct lift analysis to understand the incremental impact of these new channels that you're testing out throughout your campaigns as well. So that concludes the emerging channels. The next topic that we want to go a little bit deeper into is actually measuring foot traffic, which has been like a huge indicator of performance on the StackAdapt platform this past year. So just taking a step back, what is foot traffic attribution? Foot traffic attribution refers to the method used to relate mobile campaign impressions or conversions to actual store visits. And the reason why it's so important to measure is that all conversion data is actually not available just by online data. When you're actually a retail store and you're measuring or pixeling websites, you're actually only getting probably 50% of the total data that you need to understand the full customer journey and understand the impact of your advertising. So even if footfall isn't like a main or primary indicator of performance for your specific store, if you do have a brick and mortar location as part of your business, it's always worthwhile to at least test out foot traffic attribution studies and use that in tandem with your online performance data to see trends over time and see how performance is changing over time based on different tactics that you're leveraging. And another key segue as to why foot traffic attribution is so important. The reason why it's so important as well is just because it helps you track the overall 360 view of how your campaigns are performing. And this reason is why StackAdapt's actually directly integrated with PlaceIQ to showcase footfall attribution in platform. So StackAdapt footfall attribution powered by PlaceIQ is an in-house solution that empowers marketers to measure the impact of their advertising and driving people to visit their brick and mortar locations. Key benefits of using footfall attribution through StackAdapt is that it's a one-stop shop. So you don't have to use a different dashboard or get manual reports from a different partner. You'll directly get PlaceIQ's location data directly from the platform. So you can go ahead and buy and optimize in real time. You'll get your real-time results as well, reporting consolidated in our platform to make in-flight optimizations that drive visitation very easy. And the final one just being increased flexibility. So in a traditional sense, you'd have to go through a third-party partner, sign IOs, go through minimum impression agreements. Within the StackAdapt platform, you don't have to do any of that. And it's very easy for you to test PlaceIQ's data for attribution studies as well. Now, with that being said, I'm going to hand it off to Mark to kind of talk a little bit more about footfall attribution in detail.
Thank you so much. So visitation data, obviously used for audience targeting, but also used for measurement. It's one of the key areas where we help marketers better understand how effective their campaigns are. It's got to be the number one question that most marketers are asked post-campaign. How effective was it? What was the return on that investment? What actions did you drive? How did the audience react? We're able to, in conjunction with StackAdapt, provide that information on a campaign-by-campaign basis to StackAdapt customers. We provide our full visitation data daily to StackAdapt, so all visits to all locations across the entirety of the US and into Canada, which makes it available at your fingertips, as Jasmine just described. That data can be utilized to help optimizing campaign, can be utilized to help understand trending analysis of when and where people are visiting. Is it a particular day of the week? Is it a particular hour of a day? All information that can be utilized to better enhance the performance of your digital marketing campaign. Incredibly easy to access within the StackAdapt platform, self-service, fully available. It's precise and scalable, and it can be utilized across an omni-channel approach. So any sort of inventory that you're targeting, we can measure visitation in correlation with your campaign to better understand how that campaign is driving action by driving people to physical store locations. I think the most important thing to note here is that PlaceIQ has measured and seen an incredibly deep correlation between visitation and purchase. So it's with strong likelihood that if you're driving action to locations, you're going to be driving bottom line revenue in purchases that are going to be made in your locations. And that's what we want to help do in tandem with the folks at StackAdapt.
Perfect.
Great. So let's wrap up real quick and then we'll do some questions. A few key takeaways we wanted to touch on, really the themes of what we talked about today. Targeting with precision, so utilizing your targeting capabilities within the DSP with StackAdapt, as well as location data to better understand how to tailor your messages and speak to and engage with the audience of your choice. We also want to reiterate that this is not an either or type scenario. Data from online sources and offline sources, all very effective. The single best way to utilize them is together. And we've put together a solution with our partners at StackAdapt here that allow you to do that pretty effectively and very efficiently. Those combination of tools really is the most effective way to continue to drive action from your digital marketing campaigns. And of course, you want to be able to measure that impact, right? how effective are those campaigns, what actions are they driving downstream, and you can do that by understanding visitation trends and habits of your audiences to better understand the effectiveness of those campaigns and to drive real performance.
All right. Thank you both. Thank you, Jasmine and Mark. That was very, very insightful. Would now like to jump into the Q&A portion of the webinar and open up the floor to any questions that you guys might have. As a reminder, if you have any questions, please place them in the questions box of the GoToWebinar panel. I see there are a few questions that came through during the webinar, so I'm going to start with those. So first question, are there specific data points or KPIs that are often overlooked in foot traffic attribution?
I could take that one. Specific KPIs that are overlooked. I don't know that there's a specific data point that I would say is most commonly overlooked. I think it's using the understanding of data, visitation data, to holistically get a sense of what your audience is interested in. It could be information about visiting competitors. It could be information about when they're visiting, how often they're visiting. It could be information about the day of week or time of day they're visiting. All of those things are incredibly important to understand how to effectively message them and can be utilized in your targeting tactics, in your messaging and your content, and in your delivery, specific to location. So I think that would be what I would focus on. I know that's the opposite of what the question asked, but I think utilizing all of those to your benefit is going to be the most effective way to utilize PlaceIQ data through StackAdapt.
Thanks, Mark. Which shopping pattern data is it possible to identify online patterns that are driving in-store visits, or is this just based on offline behavior?
I'll take this one too. So the data that PlaceIQ provides is specific to offline behaviors. What's going on in the real world? We're able to probabilistically determine that a visit took place. Those types of insights can be used in conjunction with online insights, but for the most part, our goal, at least from the PlaceIQ perspective, is to provide offline insights into an online space where you're managing a campaign for digital advertising. Jasmine, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would actually add that, like, in terms of using location data as like intent and like understanding future behaviors, a common thing that we say is like historical behavior often is a key indicator for future behavior as well. If somebody is a frequent coffee shop goer or if they frequently visit malls, they tend to continue to do so in the future as well. So if those level of intent audiences are useful for a specific campaign or a specific brand's use case, it's always like worthwhile to leverage historical data segments or data segments like that PlaceIQ has that track historical visitation trends and use that and understand how they're performing. And then in conjunction with that as well, it's PlaceIQ's audiences, all the ones that Mark mentioned, are easily available directly in the StackAdapt platform. So I would also recommend easily like using these audiences and testing out which tactics are used, which levers you can pull in terms of recency window, in terms of targeting specific stores or just industries as a whole, and understanding which one is working better for your campaign.
Okay, next question. The store locator ad unit looks great. How long would it take to get something similar made at StackAdapt?
So I can take this one as well. Essentially, the store locator unit is developed by our Creative Studio team, which are absolutely amazing. We leverage them all the time. I believe it takes a week for that unit to get created. But definitely, like if this is something of interest, it is something that's available to StackAdapt users within a specific minimum threshold. And I definitely encourage like leveraging the Creative Studio as well. So I would always recommend for the people here to reach out to your StackAdapt representative to learn more. And if this is something of interest, we can definitely help set that up.
Amazing, thank you. What is the device coverage of PlaceIQ as a whole for the US market?
Yeah, it's a great question. Currently, as of the last report that I saw earlier this week, we're seeing about 150 million monthly active users. So that means of the location data that we are acquiring across the ecosystem, we're seeing 150 million unique device IDs. On a month-to-month basis, that number can fluctuate anywhere between 5 and 10%, depending upon who utilized a phone that month, if the phone was replaced or broken or lost. There's going to be turnover, but 150 million monthly active users is the figure that we saw most recently. That's typically broken down about 60-40 split in terms of Android versus Apple. Again, that can shift anywhere between 2 to 5% every month, depending upon which devices we're seeing activity from. But 60% is typically the round figure that we see in terms of Android devices versus 40% in Apple.
Thanks, Mark. Next question. How accurate is footfall measurement?
A very important question. We have taken steps by integrating precisely POI data, by having our own internal database of map locations, and in particular, drawing hand-drawn roof lines around every single one of the 26-ish million locations that we have mapped in our database, so that we can best determine that a visit took place. However, we do say, and I've already said it this webinar, it's probabilistic, not deterministic. And the reason for that is that the underpinnings of everything location data based is based upon GPS. GPS does have specific limitations depending upon whether you're in a city center and it's busy, the buildings are tall around you, where GPS can be slightly inaccurate. I think the gauge is somewhere between 5 and 25 feet, depending upon how busy things are. I know I've experienced it, and I'm sure many of you have as well. You hail a car from a rideshare app, and then you're in a busy city center. Your blue dot to be picked up might be a little bit further away from where you actually are. In that case, and to counteract that, PlaceIQ has an entirely a very long scoring methodology to understand the accuracy of visits. Is it a single standing structure? Is it in a city center? Is it a strip mall? Is it in a larger mega mall? All these things we have scoring tactics for on the back end in our database to better understand whether a visit took place and whether we can say that with confidence. When we look at the data set that we provide to StackAdapt in particular, it meets all the highest requirements for a visit to take place. So we are only really cherry picking the visits that we think occurred with the highest probability. So long-winded way of saying it's just about as accurate as we can get it, with the slight limitations that GPS provides to anybody in the location data space.
All right, next question. Are there additional fees for using purchase segments in smart markets?
Yeah, no additional fees for those. They're going to be a CPM-based model, just like any other targeting segment you would utilize, PlaceIQ or otherwise. And those particular offerings are going to be somewhere in the middle there. I don't recall the exact price off the top of my head, but there's no extra fee to utilize those. They're just simply priced like any other segment would be. So feel free to use them, test them, and speak to your StackAdapt rep about best targeting use cases for them.
All right, next question. I see in the footfall attribution report in StackAdapt, there is a graph with time and day. Is there a way to add that to the table report below?
Yeah, I can take that one as well. So I believe that specific view wouldn't be available natively in the export, just because that's not one of the fields that are readily available in our platform's overview tab. However, I would say that I would recommend reaching out to your account representative or AM, and we have the ability to generate that data and generate custom reports. And I think that's like a big opportunity for you to kind of engage with our team with. And again, since we're so closely tied with PlaceIQ's data, we're able to provide these custom reports based on the requirements that you have for your clients as well. So that's definitely something that we could workshop.
Last question, everyone. The location study in the FTA report has to be targeted within a running campaign?
I can take this one as well. So I'm assuming that this question means like if we're targeting like a McDonald's chain, like if we're tracking it for attribution purposes, do we need to be targeting that location as well? The answer is no, and that's likely a tactic that you shouldn't be doing in the first place, just because if you're targeting that specific McDonald's, you're going to end up reaching people that were just happen to be at that McDonald's anyways. What I would recommend though is like for football studies, there should be a layer at least of geo-targeting available, whether that's targeting like a large radius around that specific location or targeting the specific city or state. Just like enough to the point where the people you're reaching could in fact like drive to that specific location or reach that specific location without too much difficulty. So that would be like my recommendation in terms of actual targeting tactics. There's like a wide variety that we discussed in this presentation, including using offline data. I'm using PlaceIQ's like native audiences within our platform. Again, like using browsing-based audiences, intersecting that to get a high intent audience as well. And then again, like using the best creative practices to drive football conversions too.
Amazing. So thank you so much once again, Jasmine. Thank you, Mark, for joining us. And that concludes today's webinar. Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.